Port City Plate Podcast, presented by Bienville Bites Food Tour. Port City Plate Podcast, serving up the food, history, and people of Mobile, Alabama for people who love the Port City. I'm your host, Chris Andrews, and I'm excited about this episode. Once again, we're talking about food, history, and beer on this podcast today. And I got Ben Ross with me from Iron Hand Brewing, and I can't wait to dig into this episode. We got Ben on talking about one of the coolest places, you know, not only in Mobile in my mind, but I mean just on the Gulf Coast in the Southeast. Iron Hand Brewing and the story about their history and the beer and the food there. It's going to be a good one. So welcome, Ben, to the Port City Plate Podcast.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. So you're the head brewer at Iron Hand Brewing.
I am.
How did you get into brewing beer?
Well, it started out as a hobby. I was working offshore in the oil and gas industry, and came home and wanted to have something to do to fill in the time. My wife and I went to a homebrew store over in Pensacola and got some winemaking stuff and some beer making stuff and some cheese making stuff, and just sort of went from there. So started out as a home brewing hobby and became so much more involved.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely not something that people in Mobile just kind of you just don't really fall into that, brewing beer.
No, but home brewing is a great hobby, and my sister had done it. My cousins had done it when I was quite a bit younger, living up in staying up in Portland, Oregon, and it's a great hobby, and then it's something that can has grown into so much more.
Right. Now, where are you from, Mobile?
No, I'm not. I'm actually from Alaska.
Okay.
Came down here in the military and then worked offshore, and my wife teaches at South. So
okay. Yeah, very interesting.
That's what brought us here.
I didn't think the accent was Mobile accent, but I just wanted to make sure.
No, not from around here.
So what made you decide to go in from home brewing to actually open up your own brewery?
Well, we were visiting my daughter up in Oregon and walking through a bookstore, and my wife says, "Hey, we should totally open a brewery." Of all the things that I could listen to her on, that was it. So like 2 weeks later, I call her, "Hey, guess what I'm doing?" "What are you doing?" "I'm looking at buildings for breweries." So that was the big step.
That's it.
Yeah.
So talk about what was that process like? Y'all found the building there in DeTonti Square, I'm guessing, and
we looked at buildings all over the Gulf Coast. We looked at everything from New Orleans to Milton, Florida. Probably looked at 50 to 75 buildings, but the building we looked at was one of the first ones that looked at here in town. It had been used as the waterfront rescue mission for like 50 years, and they had outgrown the facility and moved like 10 blocks down the street, and the building had been sitting empty for 4 or 5 years at that point in time.
Okay. So what about that building just made you think, all right, this is it, this is the one right here?
Well, at that point in time, there was a lot of new construction going on. They were just in the process of finishing building the new courthouse, the federal courthouse was just 2 blocks away. It's a DeTonti neighborhood. DeTonti Square neighborhood is a really nice neighborhood, walkable. It's off the beaten path of Dolphin Street, so you don't have all the craziness that sometimes goes on over here, but it's close enough that you can get away from this and have a nice relaxing atmosphere.
How much work did you have to put into that building that was there? Because it's a beautiful facility.
Well, actually, we didn't put a whole lot of work into the building. We did not buy the building. Somebody else bought the building. They came to us and said, "Hey, we heard you were interested in opening a brewery. You still interested in doing that?" And we said yes. But they did all of the build out. But if you look at the building, most of the interior is old antique wood. The building was built in about 1927, and probably 90% of the woodwork in there is from the original construction. So hardwood floors, hardwood ceiling, front and back walls are hardwood, all heart of pine.
Yeah,
and,
beautiful hardwood floors.
It's a gorgeous building. So our landlord did most of that build out. I mean, the only thing that I built was the bar.
Right. Now, it was a church also, right?
Yeah, it was originally a Baptist church, and then they merged with another church in town and moved out onto Spring Hill Avenue. And shortly thereafter, in the early '60s, it became the Waterfront Rescue Mission, operated as the Waterfront Rescue Mission as their well, they had the chapel, they had the having a brain moment here. had their the live-in facilities there, the dormitories. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
They had the dormitories there, and in the '60s they built the kitchen out in the back. So it was, they operated that until about 2012, and we started looking at the building in 2015,
Okay.
2016.
Yeah. All right, so we got to talk about the name, Iron Hand. So tell me about the name Iron Hand. Talk about that.
Okay, Iron Hand. He is one of the forgotten founding fathers of Mobile. Enrico Tonti. He was an Italian-born French explorer. So his father was a financier in Italy. Participated in a failed coup attempt, and they escaped under cover of darkness to France. And Henri DeTonti, as he was then called, was joined up with LaSalle and came over to the New World. He was one of LaSalle's main lieutenants, responsible for. He was the lieutenant that was in charge of building the Griffin which was the first ship on the Great Lakes. He's known as the father of Peoria, Illinois. He's the father of Arkansas. There's actually a town in northwest Arkansas that's named after him. Immigrants came over at the early 1900s, wanted to found a town and name it after a famous Italian. So they named it Tonti Town in northwest Arkansas.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
And he was with LaSalle when LaSalle made it to the mouth of the Mississippi. And then after LaSalle was murdered by his other men, Bienville and d'Iberville, who were the well-known founding fathers of Mobile, asked him to come and help with the founding of Mobile. And so he did. Great rapport with the local natives, spoke the language, and unfortunately, not a lot of women in the Mobile area at that point in time. So they asked the French government to send over some ladies. So they sent some ladies over from orphanages, stuff like that. Made a stop in. They came over on a boat that was the Pelican. So you may have heard of that.
Yeah,
So
we had the Pelican Girls.
Yeah, we
on
had
the
Pelican.
Okay. Just a few episodes ago.
Okay.
We actually had one of the Pelican Girls.
She must be really old
She
now.
was, yes, Miss Catherine.
Okay.
Yep.
She, about 300 years old by now.
Yep.
So the Pelican Girls came over, and the Pelican stopped in Havana, and they picked up a wonderful case of yellow fever and brought that to Mobile. And unfortunately, DeTonti was one of the people who died in that initial outbreak of yellow fever.
Man.
So
The Pelican Girls.
yeah, they took
Killed
care of us.
DeTonti. Man.
They did. They
Man.
did.
That's crazy. Yeah, that was a really good episode we had a couple of episodes ago. So yeah, if you want to know more about the Pelican Girls and that entire expedition, that's definitely an episode worth going back and listening to. So how did DeTonti? So how did he get the name Iron Hand? Are you familiar with that story?
Sure, absolutely. So before he came over to the New World, he was the equivalent of the French Foreign Legion. Was in the Battle of Sicily and had his hand blown off by a 16th century hand grenade. or mangled by it, and he cut it off the rest of the way and continued fighting. And then had it replaced with an iron prosthetic. So story is that he could hit somebody, knock somebody out with one blow with that iron hand. So that's what the natives called him was Iron Hand DeTonti.
And so when you go to Iron Hand Brewing, on the very back wall, there's a photograph there that you have of DeTonti, right, with the iron hand.
Sure.
Yep.
So there's actually an original portrait of him that's hanging in the History Museum downtown here, and there was a lady who lived in the neighborhood, an artist who made a modern picture of that, and instead of him standing out in the woods, a picture of him standing in front of Fort Condi, and that's hanging in his portrait is hanging in the pub.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, let's talk about your beer. Talk about some of the best sellers. What do people come in? What do people love to get when they come into Iron Hand?
Well, probably our best seller is Rebecca's First Amber. And when we opened up, Rebecca wanted to, she needed to have some street cred for brewing beer. So we created a recipe for her to brew, and that was the first Rebecca's first beer.
Okay.
Or the first beer that she brewed. An amber ale. Probably number 2 is our Lost Ring Porter, which is brewed with at least some locally grown hops. There's a couple of different places around town that are growing some small amounts of local hops that we use. And then we have our Prince Conti IPA. Prince Conti Street over here, was DeTonti's patron. He was the royal patron. And that's one of the reasons why DeTonti is less well known than d'Iberville and Bienville. They actually had connections to the royal court. DeTonti did not.
Okay.
So we have one named after Prince Conti.
Right. Okay.
And that's it. That's
interesting. So I don't know. Maybe if DeTonti had lived longer, certainly maybe his fame would have been more. He may have been more well known.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, he sort of exited the stage right at the beginning of Mobile.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Talk about your process of making the beer. How much time do you spend? I mean, at this point, you've got your menu solidified, right? So I mean, you're probably not tweaking with the recipes at all at this point. But do you still kind of come up with new recipes and new flavors?
Yes, absolutely. It's always an experimental process for coming up with new things. We do have our core. We've got about 10 beers that we brew pretty regularly, and then we've got another 8 or 10 beers that we brew once or twice a year. Okay. And then we also have periodically we have something that's brand new, fresh that comes out. I guess that's really about it.
I know, just some of your beers, especially. I mean, you won't find any beers like this on menus at some of the other breweries in town. Some of your English style IPAs and things like that, right? Sure.
Yeah, we tend to do more British style beers, like you just mentioned there. And if you look inside the pub, it's sort of a British pub theme in terms of the decor with the hardwood and the natural or the dark colors, so on and so forth.
What would you say for somebody that's what would be the difference between an English style pale ale and an IPA, or Indian pale ale? What would be the primary difference there? With just somebody who has no idea what maybe either one of those mean.
Well, the true English IPAs don't have the really hard bitterness that the West Coast IPAs of a few years ago had, and they're not the juicy IPAs that you have that are so popular right now. They're a lot more subtle than than either of those. And the New World hops are very fruity, very very flavorful. They whether it's citrus flavors or stone fruit flavors, those just weren't common in England or Germany. Those tend to have more grassy, more earthy flavors to them.
Yeah.
So it's just the different hops. The Terre Noire for the different hops is significantly different between the different styles.
That's interesting. I think too that I think not only the beer that makes your brewery so unique, but also the fact that you have food at your brewery.
Sure.
The only brewery in Mobile that has food, and not talking about just a little bit of bar food or some light bites. I mean, you've got a full kitchen and a real full menu there.
We do.
Well, first of all, I guess, how do you explain the process of how you can have food at your brewery?
Okay. Well, the way that Alabama law works is you've got brew pubs, which is what we are, and you've got breweries. And at the time that we opened up, a brew pub was required to have the ability to serve food to, I think it was 75 people. You had to have seating for 75 people for them to sit down with a plate, fork, knife, and spoon in front of them. And someplace couldn't just be tacos. It couldn't be finger food. It had to be a sit-down meal. And then with breweries, they just are. They can have food, they cannot have food. For a long time, it was interpreted that they couldn't have food, but that's not really the case. They can have food, but the cost of a commercial kitchen is about the same as the cost of all the equipment for a brewery. It adds on a huge amount of cost. For us, the building that we moved into already had a commercial kitchen, so that wasn't a significant additional cost for us. So that's what the big difference in Alabama is between a brewery and a brew pub.
Okay.
Now, what the brew pub does for us is, as a brew pub, we are essentially a restaurant that makes our own beer. So we also have a restaurant liquor license, which is what allows us to have wine and liquor in addition to our beer.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
That makes sense. That makes sense. I've always been interested in that, and so I appreciate you explaining that. So let's talk about some of the food that you have on the menu. Like
Sure.
What are some, what's some best sellers? What are some things that you just got to get when you go into Iron Hand and have a meal?
Well, hands down, our best seller, an individual item is our pizzas are our biggest seller.
Love y'all's pizzas.
And beyond that, we make our own corned beef. We take brisket, we trim it down, we cure it in-house, make our own sauerkraut. And so all of our Reuben products, whether it's the Reuben pizza, the Reuben fries, or the Reuben sandwich, as a group, that's the top of the list. That's some of our best.
I've wrote down in my notes to mention the Reuben pizza because of how good it is. So yeah, I agree with you. Like the sourdough bread, I love that pizza. That's good stuff.
Thank you.
What are some other, and you mentioned earlier, more of it's a British style pub, right? And
Sure.
you also have British style pub food as well, right? So
We do. Yeah.
What are some other things on the menu?
Okay, so we have daily specials, and our daily specials are all basically in that British style. So on Wednesdays, our special is shepherd's pie. We get leg of lamb, we grind it, and make the shepherd's pie. On Thursdays, we do bangers and mash. Bangers are an English breakfast sausage, mashed potatoes, onion gravy, and mushy peas. On Friday, we do fish and chips, Atlantic cod, and on Saturday, it's corned beef and cabbage, and on Sunday, it's corned beef hash.
Nice.
So, British theme for all of our specials.
Yep.
And the way that came about is, the style of beer that I personally enjoy and that we concentrate on mostly is British styles, and wanted to have some British themed food to go along with that.
Yeah, it's really
So
unique. So celebrating St. Patrick's Day coming up, I mean, y'all are the go-to spot.
Well, I sure hope so. I've got brisket that's curing into corned beef right now, and we'll be ready to
All right, that
ready to
sounds
go
good.
on the corned beef and cabbage and whatever Reuben items folks want to come in and grab.
Yep, I like it. We're also in the Lent season right now in Mobile as we're recording this podcast, so I think a good place also for, you mentioned the fish and chips, maybe a good place to come on Friday as well during the Lent season.
Absolutely.
So what other kind of things do y'all do with the brewery? I mean, events, I mean, right, you're always got to have events, and you've always got to, be doing things. So what are some things that y'all do there?
The next big event that we've got a homebrew festival that's coming up the first Saturday in April. That'd be April 6th. We've got homebrewers from across the Gulf Coast. They'll be coming in and setting up and serving some of their various homebrew styles. And last year we had about 20 participants that came. We had a couple hundred people that showed up for that. Hopefully we'll be doing a bigger group this year. And that is an event that we do in conjunction with United Cerebral Palsy in Mobile. They have a residential program for it's called Camp Smile, and it's a benefit. The event is a benefit for Camp Smile.
Okay, very cool. All right, yeah, sounds good. I definitely need to put that on my radar to come out and check that out.
Yeah, and it's a donation event in Alabama. You can't charge for home brew.
Okay.
So it's a suggested donation, but anybody can come. Doesn't cost anything. Just obviously we ask for people to make donations to UCP Mobile to help them out with the Camp Smile.
Yeah, it's supporting the home brewers too. I mean, you're right.
Absolutely.
I mean, most of them probably like you, like I said, kind of starting off with, doing this as a hobby, and who knows, maybe one day you might taste something that could be another brewery, maybe
sure.
not only here but maybe somewhere else around the area.
Sure, and some of these home brewers have been home brewing since longer than 2008 when it became legal.
Nice.
But maybe not doing it in Alabama.
Right. What are some of the challenges you faced in opening the building there or opening the brewery, especially? I mean, I'm thinking, certainly, how was it received in the neighborhood? I would imagine that some of the neighborhood residents might be hesitant about a brewery. Was that the case for you?
We had some hesitancy from the neighborhood, but for the most part, the neighborhood has been very supportive. We went to the neighborhood before we opened up, and before we made any motions towards moving in there, and got approval. Got the thumbs up from the neighborhood, and the neighborhood has continued to be pretty supportive of us. We've got a lot of regulars from the neighborhood that are in every week. But the biggest challenge that we face is, I said before, we're not on Dauphin Street, so we don't have all that craziness. But we also don't have the foot traffic, so we are a destination.
Right.
So if you don't know that we're there, you won't know that we're there.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest challenge that we have is just visibility.
Right, and there's plenty of street parking. Every time I've gone to your brewery, I've never had a hard time finding parking, along State Street or any of the side streets right there. So I do think it's very, very convenient. And even to walk, I mean, I think, you're still only maybe 5 blocks?
I think we're five blocks
from
up.
Bienville Square. I mean, I think it's almost a straight shot from Bienville Square.
Yeah, we're between Conception and Joachim on State Street, so it's from the straight up from Loaded Beer Garden. Walk straight up there, and that's the cross street that we're on.
Right. All right, so what are y'all's hours? If people want to come out and check out the brewery, what's the address, location, hours?
Address is 206 State Street, and that's 2 blocks from the post office for a big landmark. We are open on Wednesdays and Thursdays from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Wednesdays we have Blazing Beats bingos for people to come in for. On Thursdays we have trivia, On Fridays, we open for lunch, so we're open from 11 till 9 o'clock. Saturdays, 11 to 9 o'clock. Sometimes we have live entertainment. Sometimes we just hang out. And then on Sundays, we're open from brunch from 10 to 4, from 10 to 2 for brunch, and then we stay open until 7 o'clock.
Okay, all right. Talk about the brunch menu. What's good on the brunch menu?
It's eggs.
Nice.
Eggs and meat. So, we do the Iron Hand breakfast, which is, choice of waffle and grits or, sausage. The sausage is the same sausage that we use for our pizza and the same sausage in the bangers and mash that we make in-house. Pancakes, waffles, French toast made with our sourdough bread.
That sounds good.
It's a brunch.
Yeah. And how many beers on tap do you have?
Right now we've got, I think we've got 8 of our beers on tap, and then we've got a couple of guest taps. Our maximum is I think 15. We have 15 taps.
Okay. Talk about the guest taps. What does that entail? So is that?
Yeah. So because we're a brewer, or we're a brew pub, not a brewery, we are able to get other people's beer in. So I don't brew a lot of sours, and translate that to that, I don't brew sours. So we always try to have at least one guest tap sour from another brewery. And our policy is we only do independently owned craft breweries. So you're not going to find, you're not going to find the national brands.
Right. With
us. It's for the most part, it's all regional breweries.
So who is your guest tap right now?
We have Chandelier. We've got a key lime sour from them, and I think we have a Pinot Noir sour from Parish Brewing over in Broussard.
Pinot Noir sour. Okay.
It's actually they make it with they bring in Pinot Noir grapes to do it. It's a if you like sours, it's a good one.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. So what's next for you? I mean, I know I've seen your beer at Haberdasher, some of the local restaurants as well. So where could is that a plan for you to expand into the local restaurants and the bars and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are distributing with Gulf Distributing, and again, because we're a brew pub, not a brewery, we can't can or bottle. All we can do is kegs. So we are in bars and restaurants. There's about 30 bars and restaurants around Mobile and Baldwin counties. You mentioned the Haberdasher. Cottage Hill Package Store has had some of our beer. Nixon's. Again, there's about 30 places around town that are carrying one or more of our beers.
Okay. And what about any other plans for the brewery? Any other plans in the future? What do you think?
Just keep on doing what we're doing. Trying to plan some more events, some larger events like the Homebrew Festival. We have done some crawfish boils in the past, which are a lot of fun. But with the price of crawfish this year, probably not going to happen.
No, not a whole lot of profit to be made on the crawfish this year.
No, not unless somebody's coming in ready to pay $100 a plate. Yeah, it's just crazy this year.
All right, that's good. All right, y'all got to go check out Iron Hand Brewing for sure. Our next segment of the podcast is called Meat and Three. So we've already gotten into the meat of the podcast. Now I've got 3 questions for you, Ben.
All right.
3 questions that I want to ask you. So just talk about what's you and Rebecca. Where do y'all like to go eat on let's say a Friday or Saturday when you have a free? Well, I guess you probably don't have a Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday.
So you probably have a Monday and
Friday
Tuesday.
and Saturday we eat at Iron Hand. Callahan's.
Yeah.
We go to Callahan's.
Yeah.
That's been our go-to place. We had a place that was that we lived in that was about 5 blocks from Callahan. So that was our neighborhood restaurant.
Okay. Yeah. All right, my second question for you is what would you say is the best beer and food combination that you have at Iron
Hand? Fish and chips and Lost Ring Porter.
Okay, all right, sounds good. That's I gotta come in for both of those. I haven't had the fish and chips, so I gotta venture out on that. All right, my third question is, for those of us, that are traveling, maybe shout out a brewery in the Southeast that you admire, somewhere that, people, you say, this is a brewery that you got to go visit. Maybe throughout the Southeast or the state of Alabama, somewhere. Somewhere that you like, that's on your radar every time.
I really like Emerald Republic over in Pensacola.
Okay, where are they at? Somewhere over there. In Pensacola.
They're over in Pensacola. They're on the west side of Pensacola. I can't even remember the name of the street that they're on, but it's sort of a gothic theme. We used to go in there. They used to on Monday nights they would do a hard rock Mondays, and so they go in there and they play some loud music, and we drink their they had a really good dry stout that so that was the place.
All right, sounds good. Noted. All right, our next segment of the podcast is called Chris's Dishes. And this is where I talk about the best dish that I've had lately, and then if you've got a dish you want to shout out, I'll turn it over to you. But my dish this week is another Lent special, so I've got another Lent dish that I'll shout out, and that's the Whole Poke from Dolphins. And I was in Dolphins a couple of weeks ago, and they were kind of talking about the poke. That's not really something that I usually get on a lot of menu. That's not something I'm going to get, but they were serving it that day. Yellowfin tuna, rice. It's got some little pecans on it. It was phenomenal. If you like poke, it's the dish. You've got to get it for sure. At Dolphins, Chef Zucker, the chef, the executive chef there, he won an award for this, like a Big Island award. I can't remember all the details of the story, but he's supposedly the only non-Hawaiian to ever win this award for this poke. Okay. So I feel like that goes a long way. So if you go to Dolphins, you got to get the Whole Poke Bowl. So what about you, Ben? You got a dish that you want to shout out? Anything you've had, or anything at the restaurant that you've had?
I wish I could say that I had, but anytime any restaurant is open, I'm at Iron Hand, so I don't get to go out very much.
Right.
But I will say this: our old kitchen manager left us about a year ago, and he is now working for a company called Toasted Yolk, and they're getting ready to open a place over on Old Shell. It's
That's right.
Breakfast
in the old Fuego location.
Yeah, exactly. And they're supposed to have their grand opening this month, and that's a place that I'm looking forward to going into.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you know the chef there. So that's good to know too.
So, that's. I haven't honestly. I haven't been out to eat in so long. I can't even remember the last time I did.
That's a good shout out though. Yeah, I rode by there the other day, and a nice little patio area out there on Old Shell. So I think it's going to. do really well.
They've done a lot of work to that building.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to. Wish them the best of luck.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. I think we need another good breakfast brunch kind of place in Mobile. So I think they'll do well there too.
Yeah.
All right, Ben. Hey, thanks for coming on the show today.
Right,
it's been good. Chris. Yeah, y'all got to go check out Iron Hand Brewing. Awesome name, awesome beer, and like we talked about, I love the story. I love how unique the beer is. I love how unique the food items are there, and love Iron Hand. So I'm coming back soon for sure for some of the stuff we talked about, and I think everybody else does too. All right, so I appreciate y'all listening to the Port City Plate podcast, and we'll catch you on the next episode.